What did you do?
There's one thing I never thought I'd have to say in my own home. Henry, get out of the kitchen. And then, a few seconds later, I'd have to say the exact same thing to Toro. Our two goats had discovered the most exciting room in the entire house, the kitchen. Henry could stand outside the window staring in for hours, almost as if he were saying, I know where the food is, and I know you're in there. And Toro would never let Henry go inside alone. If Henry came in, Toro had to follow. At some point, I realized we weren't really living in a house with two goats anymore. We were living on a farm where the goats were clearly in charge. The funny thing is, my husband had one very clear rule when we first got them. Goats were not allowed in the house. Ever. We brought Henry and Toro home because I had wanted goats since I was about 15 years old. I imagined them running around outside, playing in the barn, and following us around the garden. I never imagined they would end up sitting on our living room couch. During their first week, Henry and Toro were completely different from the goats we know today. They were shy and mostly kept their distance from us. Toro was especially attached to Henry. If Henry didn't move, Toro didn't move either. He would just stand behind Henry like a little shadow, watching us from a safe distance. So I started spending a lot of time with them in the barn. I didn't try to grab them or force them to come closer. I would simply sit with them every day, talk to them, and let them get used to my voice and having me around. Little by little, that distance disappeared. Henry started coming closer. Toro became less nervous too. Sometimes Toro would rest his head on my lap and gently rub against me like he had been doing it his whole life. They started loving kisses, belly rubs, and pretty much any excuse to be close to us. And once Henry and Toro realized we loved them, their real personalities came out. Henry turned into the most spoiled little kid imaginable. If you ignored him, he would scream at you until you paid attention. Toro was a little simpler. Whatever Henry did, Toro did too. Those two were basically a package deal. I thought I had a pretty good idea of how mischievous they could be. Then Henry discovered the house. Or, more specifically, Henry discovered the refrigerator. One day, I walked into the kitchen and looked out the window. There was Henry, staring straight at me. It wasn't the usual curious goat stare. This look was more like, I know where you're keeping the food. Don't even pretend you don't. I told Henry there was absolutely no way I was letting him inside. But Henry wasn't giving up. He just stood there staring at me with those ridiculously hard-to-resist eyes. Eventually, I opened the back door. Henry took one step inside, then another. And before I had time to reconsider my decision, he jumped straight onto the couch. Henry started running back and forth across the couch like he'd just discovered the greatest playground on earth. I stood there thinking, what have I done? Meanwhile, Toro was still outside. He watched Henry having the time of his life, but wasn't quite brave enough to come in yet. It took another couple of weeks before I finally got Toro to come inside, but when he finally crossed the doorway, he didn't explore the living room. He didn't look for food. He didn't even look at me. He ran straight to Henry. The two of them were together again, as if that was the only thing that mattered. My husband still insisted that goats did not belong in the house. He worried they'd make a mess, break things, and turn our home into complete chaos. And honestly, I understood his point. But then he started seeing how happy the goats were when they were around us. And that's when the rules started changing. He began getting treats for Henry and Toro from the refrigerator. Then he started sitting down and cuddling them. The goats quickly figured out that he was actually a very easy person to win over. Now they follow him around like two little shadows. The funniest part is that he's also trying to build me a garden. But Toro couldn't care less about the garden. He's much more interested in the tools lying around. Toro will grab a tool, run off with it, and make my husband chase him around the yard. Sometimes I have to stand between them and say, "Guys, please stop fighting." Sometimes I look around the house and honestly wonder who lives here anymore. Henry can stare through the kitchen window demanding food. Toro can steal gardening tools. They both climb onto the couch, follow us from room to room, and seem completely unaware of the concept that some places are simply not for goats. But then there are moments that make all the chaos completely worth it. Whenever we step outside, Henry and Toro notice immediately. They come running toward us, calling out in their own little goat voices, acting like we've been gone for days. And that's when I realized maybe this house was never really ours in the first place. Henry and Toro have turned it into a place filled with goat noises, little hooves running across the floor, surprise kitchen raids, stolen tools, and completely unexpected chases around the yard. They've definitely made our lives much more chaotic, but every time those two come running toward me, I can't help but smile. Maybe you don't need a perfect life. Sometimes, all you need is a couple of animals who get ridiculously happy just because they saw you.